So, in the first problem, you have to use the graph that they give you to find the rate of change. In this case, because you don't have a calculator at home, you're going to be doing rise over run. Usually, you would want to find 2 points and stat edit. But once again, not everybody has a calculator. So, I'm going to choose a point where it's crossing in the intersections, and this is a good point right here. And the other point I see is right here. And then after that, I'm just going to count. So the rise is going up 1, 2, 3, 4. So I went up 4. Since you went up, it stays positive. So my rise is 4 over the run, which is 1. And you go to the right, and to the right, the numbers are positive, so it stays positive. So 4 over 1 is the same thing as saying 4. So my rate of change equals 4, because rate of change is the same thing as slope. The y-intercept. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis. So I'm looking at the y-axis. I'm going to follow it all the way to where the line crosses, and that happens right here at -4. That is my y-intercept. For the x-intercept, that happens whenever it crosses the x-axis. So you go over to the x-axis, you see where the line is crossing, and that happens right here at 1. Now I want you to write the formula in slope-intercept form. In the slope is the letter M. And the y-intercept is the letter B. So the way you would write it is y equals, the slope is 4 x plus b. But our y-intercept is negative. So I'm going to go ahead and put -4. For problem number 2, they give me this equation in standard form, not standard slope form. So in order to put it in slope-intercept form, you have to solve for y. You see how the y is by itself? So you have -21x plus 3y equals 42. I'm going to draw the fence. Since you want the y by itself, the one that is bothering the y, the term that is bothering the y, is that -21x. So this term needs to go to the other side. And if it's negative, that means you're taking it away, right? So when you move this entire term to the other side, make sure you add the 21. So plus 21x. Remember, when it moves to the other side, that sign changes. And you end up with 3y equals 21x plus 42. Do not combine these. They are not like terms. This one has an x. This one doesn't. They do not go together. The next thing you want to do, because the y is still not by itself, is to get rid of that 3. The 3 is not being added or multiplied. It's not being added or subtracted. It is being multiplied. So what you have to do is the opposite of multiplication, which is division, and you divide by 3. And you also have to divide every single one of these terms by 3. So you end up with y equals 7x, and then 42 divided by 3 is 14. So y equals 7x plus 14. The y-intercept. In this problem, or in this equation, remember the slope is the one with the x, so this would be my y-intercept, which is 14. The x-intercept. in order to find the x-intercept, which is sometimes called the zero, you have to do the opposite of y divided by the slope. So the opposite of the y-intercept, if it was 14, it's going to be negative 14 divided by my slope, which is 7. So I end up getting that the x-intercept is negative 2. The rate of change is the same thing as asking you for slope. So the rate of change in this problem is 7 because it's the one that's next to the x. For problem number 3, the value of y varies directly with x. This word right there tells me I have direct variation. So then I'm going to keep reading. What is the constant of variation in a function that goes through 13 and 143? Okay, so I have direct variation and they gave me 2 numbers. When they give you 2 numbers, to find the constant of variation, you have to do y divided by x. It's a point. This is always x, comma y. So my y is 143 divided by the x, which is 13, and you get 11. So that's the answer right here. Number 4 wants you to solve the following inequality. So to solve this inequality, I notice that I have parentheses. The first thing I have to do is distribute. 11 will multiply with x, and that gives me 11x. And then 11 multiplies with negative 3, and that gives me negative 33. Is greater than or equal to negative 77. You want the x by itself in order to be able to have a solution. So what's bothering the x? I'm going to cover it up. And the term that is bothering the x is negative 33, which means you're taking away 33. In order to move it to the other side, I have to add 33. Okay? So this cancels out. And I end up with 11x is greater than or equal to negative 44. The x is still not by itself, so in order to get it by itself, I have to get rid of this coefficient 11. So I have to divide. Divide by 11, and we're going to divide this side by 11. This cancels out. Even though this one's negative, I am dividing by a positive number, so this is not going to change. This only flips whenever you divide by a negative number. So you end up with x is greater than or equal to negative 4. And that is the answer here. For the last problem, if y varies directly with x, and x equals negative 4 when y equals negative 60, what is the value of x when y equals 30? First thing I think is varies directly means direct variation. And I have a direct variation problem with 3 numbers. That means I have to do a proportion. I like to keep the y on top and then the x on the denominator. So I'm going to start with negative 60 goes with negative 4 equals, that's a y, right? So it goes on top, 30. And this is the x we are trying to find, the value of x. Cross multiply. negative 60 times x. You end up with negative 60x equals negative 4 times 30. You end up with negative 120. And then in order to get the x by itself, you're going to have to divide by negative 60, divide by negative 60, and you get x equals 2. And that is the answer.